This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime in association with Micromax.
Congratulations, finally Airbnb here in India. But a lot of people must really be thinking right now, what does that even mean? So I'm very intrigued. I mean, from the name itself, Airbnb, many different myths about why that name came about. Can you tell us a little bit about what does Airbnb really stand for?
So the founding story is quite fun. Before there was a company, the three of us that started it were roommates living in San Francisco. In October of 2007, the rent on our apartment was raised 25%. I said, that's too expensive, I'm moving out. But the two other guys, they wanted to stay, but they had just quit their jobs to become entrepreneurs, also known as unemployed. So they didn't have enough money either, but they're both designers, and they saw that an international design conference was coming to San Francisco, and they saw all the hotels were sold out. So they got an idea, why don't they rent out that extra bedroom to designers who might need a place to stay? Now this bedroom was vacant, there was no bed, but Joe set up an air bed, and instead of calling it a bed and breakfast, he called it an air bed and breakfast. So they put that up, and they ended up hosting 3 people. They were expecting guys like themselves, so mid-20s, male, and instead there was a 35-year-old woman from Boston, a father of 4 from Utah, and a man from India. So a super eclectic, diverse group.
Wow, so you're basically saying if you hadn't really left that room, Airbnb may never have existed, right? Was that your room, the one that got empty?
Yes.
Yes? Okay,
yes.
So that's one. So I really hope the other 2 founders hug you every day for the fact that you actually left that space, right? And the second part is, so 33% of your success came because of an Indian,
yes.
Right? Because out of the 3 people, one of them was actually an Indian. So this is fantastic. I mean, I didn't really know about all these things. So the other part of the question is, so how much was that air mattress actually rented out for?
Well, I think roughly $70 or $80 a night. That might sound like a lot.
Yeah, that's a pretty gutsy move at a point like that when you didn't have any concept of whether it'll work, and all you were really giving them was an air mattress, right?
Well, actually, we did give them breakfast, and we showed them around the city and went to the conference together. So it was actually much more of an experience. It wasn't so much just about the air mattress. However, there was no other choice. The hotels were sold out. So it worked out quite nice. And when people hear Airbnb, they never know that it was short for air, bed, and breakfast.
Right. I mean, it never really came to my mind. I always thought Airbnb, it's bed and breakfast on the cloud, so Airbnb. I'm sure there are lots of other stories. Great. Fantastic.
Thank you.
You were already here because you had quite a few listings. People were doing good business on your business model. So what's different?
So we're starting to feel a lot of momentum in the growth of Airbnb in India. Today we now have 18,000 properties across India. That grew 115% over the last year. With that kind of growth, we're very confident that now is the time to invest further. The second thing is this is a huge market and it's growing faster. So by 2020, experts say that the total addressable market should be 40 billion. So there's a rising tide that we hope will raise all boats.
So what's different on both sides? Those that will actually be booking in and the customers, and those that actually have properties. What's the difference they'll see now that you're officially here and you're saying you're going to officially invest into this country and you believe we have unbridled potential?
For travelers, there's now an interesting number of options. Now, when you search for Delhi or any other of our 100 cities in India, you're going to see dozens and dozens of places that you can stay, all with reviews. That's incredibly important because you have to know what you're getting. Trust is important. So we've kind of reached a critical mass such that we have something interesting to offer to travelers. What that means for hosts is that they're going to start getting more business. And so that's what drives the marketplace. More demand drives more supply drives more demand.
So a lot of other things that Airbnb does worldwide, but usually is restricted to particular cities or sometimes to particular countries. How much of that gets translated here? For instance, you have this professional photographer that will come in and take pictures of a property. And I was reading something about the fact that that makes a huge difference to the host or the owner, the landlord of that property to get more business, because if you're taking typical clunky pictures of a mobile phone on your own versus a professional photographer who knows how to come and shoot and get the amenities and everything else out there. Does that come in? Does the whole security angle of Airbnb, where you're coming in and rating this entire space that you'll be renting out, is all of that now going to be part of the whole Indian system?
Yes, so India is now a focus for the company, which means that across all the departments of the company, everyone has their own kind of India plan about how they make sure that, whether it be photography or customer service, that we're offering an excellent experience. So that's certainly all the basic foundational stuff will be whole and good. The other thing is we're here to kind of do what it takes to grow. We know that India is a bit of a different market, and we have now an office here to be close to what's happening, and we have the support of the company behind that office. So we're definitely in a learning mode. It's early days, but the growth is such that we feel like there's real momentum, and now's the time to invest.
Okay, so two things that you said that I'd love to explore a little bit more in detail. The first is, of course, India is a different market. You're being very, very, very subtle when you say that. We are a dramatically different market. But let's talk about one thing about India that is completely and totally unique, and that's our culture. So we are great to host people in our houses. We are very welcoming. People say nobody's as good a host as an Indian host. But it's not part of our culture to have people, strangers, coming and living in our property, our houses. And the second thing, to accept money for that would be even a bigger problem, right? The second part of our culture is that we are a culture that changes every 100 kilometers, from our language, our food, our attitude, and like I said, the way we actually think of these kind of things, especially what is home, what is a guest. How do you handle something like this? I know this is the new digital era. There will be a lot of people that will do it. But to get that true momentum, India must embrace Airbnb in more ways than one. Do you have solutions for that?
So the fact that the culture is so rich and that there's such diversity in what you can experience just even 100 kilometers away, I think that's part of the appeal for Airbnb travelers. Airbnb travelers, they don't want to be tourists. They want to really connect with the locals. They want to live like a local. So I think that's actually working in our favor. It's why we're so excited to make sure that India is accessible to our 80 million guests around the world. Now, you bring up a point about trust and how this is kind of an unusual activity and how it requires a lot of trust. You know, I've heard that before. When we started this company back in 2008 in the US, all of our investors said, well, how can you trust a stranger? So that, you know, this is a common question. We were able to overcome it in the US, and then we expanded into Europe, and the same question came up. They said, okay, maybe people trust each other in the US, but not here in Spain. Well, it turns out we were able to overcome that. Same in China, and now same in India. So this is a common perception, and it's true. Trust is something you have to earn. You can't flip a switch and have it. But the way most people come to trust Airbnb is that they hear through a friend or family member about their trip experience and learn how it works. And it's through that we build the trust. It's very much word of mouth. We can't go out there and simply do a big marketing campaign and expect all these people to sign up. If we say it, it's going to come with a grain of salt. People aren't necessarily going to buy into it in the same way that if they hear about it from a family member, they'll have more trust.
Okay. And now that you have an India office, when you're setting up that India office, you have people here from India. If I was to ask you your top 1 or 2 challenges which are unique to India, what would those be?
Well, I think we talked about trust and quality. I think
that's a global situation, right? That's just how human beings are. What's unique to India, which your office here is already kind of earmarked and saying that, okay, this is something we've got to take care of?
Well, I think another thing you'll notice that's a little bit different is the assortment of types of properties we have here. You have individuals like Nalan, we're in his living room right now. He's renting out the home in which he lives. But then we have other hosts who have a heritage hotel. And we have homestays and all kinds of things. I think our requirement is the fact that every listing needs to be different, unique, have character. That's a core part of the Airbnb brand. And we see in India this really rich ecosystem of existing players, but also those who are now doing this for the first time because the Airbnb platform makes it so easy to do so.
Great. So I think in India, I think that's the one part we'll easily take care of. A lot of diverse properties and people for sure.
The culture is very entrepreneurial here.
And yes, the other part of it is also automatic. Like I said, every time you move a little bit, you'll get something dramatically different. The part that I'm very intrigued by is you're coming into India fairly late in your Airbnb ecosystem. I would have thought India would have been right there in your priority list, maybe even a year and a half or 2 back. But you're coming in now. You think you're coming in a little late because there are others that have replicated your business model and have an Indian flavor to it, which may have a little bit more trust factor because it's for Indians and run by Indians, and therefore you're getting in people. Haven't you given the competition too much time to breathe and grow already?
Well, the competition that exists, what they offer is a little bit different. For the most part, it's not people opening up their homes for the first time. So it is a bit of a different experience. The other thing is our unique strength, one of them at least, is our giant network. We're in 191 countries, and we have 2 million homes in those different countries. And when you are traveling, you want selection, right? You want a lot of choices, especially because every single property is different. So you need to see a lot of things before you think you find the perfect one. So that really works to our advantage. It's the reason why in other countries, where we also have maybe gotten started a little bit later, we've still been successful. Airbnb is the leader for home sharing in every single country of the world, including China. China was a country we focused on 2 years ago, and we've seen remarkable growth. A country where Western companies are not known to succeed. And yet last year, China was our fastest growing country for travelers. We saw a growth of 700%, which is fast even by our own standards.
Okay, 700% in China.
That's right.
I think we'll do better here in India.
I hope so.